A man from the 1980s called Paul Young once said, "It's Christmas time, there's no need to be afraid." Well, it turns out there is if you are a fan of professional wrestling. You see, for some, Christmas is a time to reflect, to celebrate, to eat miniature heroes until you're sick, or maybe even have one too many drinky poos and end up punching your granny square in the face. So much fun. For others, however, it is a cacophony of crap that makes us wish life had a button that when pressed summoned the Undertaker, who would then bury you in a massive hole. And it's those proverbial lumps of coal that we're here to take a look at today. So let's dive into the box of Christmas crud and take a look at some CRimbo carnage that takes the form of some Christmas calamities. So let's bundle this sadness up into some kind of sordid, rotten, smelly, stinking stocking with not a single turtle dove in sight, because the doves saw what we're about to talk about today and they flew away scared. I'm Ross Tweddle from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 12 worst wrestling Christmas moments. Bar Humberto Carrillo. You see, wrestling and Christmas. Join us. Number 12, WWECW December to Dismember. With hindsight, we know that WWECW was a hot turd. But at the time, even the most pessimistic of wrestling fans hoped that Paul Heyman's little company that could would have a successful rebirth under Vince McMahon's ownership. However, the wheels instantly fell off, with Rob "Smoke 'em if you've got 'em, roll a fatty for this 5-star daddy, 420 blazing," and other weed references Van Damme getting busted for possession of some of the old illegals, stripped of the ECW and WWE titles and de-pushed. And let's not mention the zombie Macho Libre and the rest of those clowns who got themselves a right caning. Oh wait, I just did. Heading into December 2006, ECW had a Hail Mary with its first non-one-night stand pay-per-view since Guilty as Charged 2001. The name of that show, by the way, was December to Dismember. An ECW title match inside the Extreme Elimination Chamber was set for the main event. And that was it. Hastily, an undercard was quickly cobbled together, but nobody cared. But don't worry, ECW faithful, Sabu is in the chamber. You love him, he's mental. Bet he jumps off one of the pods and gets his head caught between the steel chains. What's he like, eh? Oh no, wait. WWE took him out and replaced him with Mr. Friendly himself, Hardcore Holly. The show itself was a disaster, with the crowd chanting TNA, changed the channel, as Vince's boy Bobby Lashley became ECW champion, while the show itself did the lowest buy rate in WWE history. McMahon blamed Heyman for the whole fiasco, the two had a big falling out, and Heyman was removed from his position as ECW became a further parody of itself. December to Dismember is not one to remember, let me tell ya, Eric Jemba. Number 11, the T in Mr. T stands for Tied Up at Starrcade 1994. To wrestling fans of a certain age, December means one thing: Starrcade. NWA/WCW's annual Super Show closed out every year from 1983 to 2000 and produced everything from world title triumphs, classic matches, and another squared circle appearance from one Mr. Tizzle. Or since it's Christmas, Mr. Tinsel. T featured in WCW several times in 1994, first in Hulk Hogan's corner at Beach Blast, then a special referee for Hogan vs. Flair at Halloween Havoc. Clearly impressed with B.A. Baracus' skills when it came to standing around and not messing anything up, WCW decided to put him in a match with Kevin Boogerman Sullivan at Starrcade. This was pre-NWO WCW, and their mindset was, if it worked for WWE in the 80s, it'll work for us today. It didn't work. T bounded to the ring dressed like a referee, complete with Wee Willie Winky style nightcap, and after about 30 seconds of action, Santa came out to tit around. It wasn't Santa though, it was Sullivan's brother Dave. You all know Dave, don't you? He lives 2 doors down. He goes to the corner shop on a Sunday morning and gets a pint of milk and a massive loaf of bread, and he whistles as the day is long. He's wonderful, is our Dave. Dastardly Dave, however, he clobbered Kevin with a megaphone in a sack as a tied up in his own clothes Mr. T scrambled for the pin. Yes, it was silly filler, and yes, it was only 3 minutes long, but Christ almighty me, it felt like a lifetime. Number 10, Christmas movies? As wrestling is firmly a part of the entertainment world, it's not uncommon to see your favourite superstars swap the graps for the acts. Smooth. Up until The Rock, those forays into Hollywood were usually on the lower end of the quality scale, from direct video dross and cheaply made B movies to, well, nothing else really. Arguably, there is nothing cheaper and easier to bung out than a Christmas film, and two in particular are on different ends of the strange scale, if the strange scale is even a thing to begin with. First off is cultural icon Hulk Hogan in Santa with Muscles, where a wig-wearing Hulkster loses his memory, believes he is Santa, and helps kids save an orphanage where professional wrestling's El Generico currently resides, didn't you know? I made that last bit up. Without even properly explaining the plot of the film, you know exactly what happens here, and none of it is good. Then, on the other hand, you have Bill Goldberg in Santa's Sleigh, where Big Billy does anything but slay Queen. Instead, he plays a satanic Santa who goes on a murderous, blood-soaked rampage instead of giving presents to little boys and little girls. I am not making this up. Homicides at Christmas? Can I get an amen? Amen. Thanks, Mother Roo. Unlike Santa with Muscles, Santa's Sleigh is a tongue-firmly in-cheek affair, as most of the victims and Santa himself are played by Jewish actors. But hey, you wouldn't pick any of these over a Muppet Christmas Carol now, would you? Number 9, Alberto Del Rio hits Santa Claus with a car. Alberto Del Rio. I was going to make a joke about him being a lovely fella, but it's just not worth it now, is it? He's a naughty boy, and he deserves all of the coal. Anyway, once upon a time, Bertie accidentally ran Santa Claus over on an episode of Monday Night Raw, and it happened on Christmas Eve, no less. How will the kids get their presents? What will be done with the sherries and cookies I left out on the kitchen table? Yoink, Rossi Hungy! Despite being a total bastard, Del Rio actually showed some remorse, because not even the bad guys can feel good about maiming jolly old Saint Nick. All while Ricardo Rodriguez dry-heaved. WWE repeatedly cut to backstage reports from Matt Striker, who treated Santa's injuries like they were real, likely traumatizing millions of children who were watching at home. Understandably, the entire WWE locker room was fuming, and it was left to the king of Christmas himself, John Cena, to avenge a presumably bed-bound Santa. John promptly challenged Del Rio to a Miracle on 34th Street fight, which by the way was a bog-standard hardcore match, but the weapons were in Christmas present boxes. Because nothing says it's Christmas like bludgeoning somebody with a freshly unwrapped steel chair. As the match was rolling towards its conclusion, Santa emerged. But hang on, that's not Saint Nick, that's Saint Mick. Mick Foley. And the one-eared Christmas man, Mandible Claw Del Rio with Mr. Socko as Big Match John saved Christmas with an AA. Thank you, John. Thank you from all of the children. Number 8, a proper CRimbo with the great Khali. Although WWE's Christmas crackers occasionally involve main eventers, the company's holiday offerings are usually filler segments involving the lower end of the card. In 2013, this was especially true, when Renee Young herself hosted a triple threat tag team carol singing contest, where the winner would be decided by the audience reaction. On a wrestling show, by the way, this is still the wrestling. The competitors in this historical affair were wrestler R-Truth and pre-New Day but still wrestler Xavier Woods, and future WWE champions and wrestlers Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre, and lol, aren't they an odd couple but also wrestlers Santino Marella and the great Khali. Before a note was even sung, you knew who was going to win this one. Xavier sang "Oh Holy Night" while R-Truth added very little, and you know what? It was absolutely lovely. Drew and Jinder then sang Jingle Bells, finishing each of the sentences like a pants tribute to the Beastie Boys as the audience booed. Then up came Santino, complete with reindeer antler sporting Cobra sock, and Khali was there too. Santino meekly sang Deck the Halls like an infant choir boy, while Khali shouted fa la 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 without any rhythm or semblance of how the song actually goes. And they won by a landslide, of course, and to be fair, it was quite funny. And that's if funny actually means not funny at all and a little bit rubbish. Number 7, a very TNA Christmas. Weird Christmas wrestling has also decimated TNA over the years, most notably back in 2007, when Vince Russo was a part of the creative team. TNA dedicated an entire episode of Impact to all things festive, promoting a Silent Night Bloody Night match and a ladder match between AJ Styles and Kaz, where the loser had to dress like a reindeer, among other Yuletide favourites. The running theme of the night was centered around a Christmas soiree at Eric Young's house. Picture Noel's house party without Mr. Blobby and you'll get the right idea. Needless to say, the party didn't exactly go to plan. Kevin Nash made a joke about Spunk and Samoa Joe wrecked the gaff. Before the guest of honor arrived, and that guest of honor, of course, was Santa Claus himself. EY was ecstatic. Despite being 28 years old, Santa's still real to him, damn it. As for the matches, the highlight of the night was the aforementioned ladder match, which Kaz won, meaning AJ Styles had to dress like Prancer, or was it Dancer, or was it Donna, or Blitzen. I'm in the reindeer community. Elsewhere, Team 3D beat up some little people, there was a 9-knockout Santa's Workshop match, and Black Rain hit Shark Boy with a Christmas tree made from barbed wire. Number 6, Kurt Angle vs Santa Claus at Armageddon 2004. Armageddon 2004 was a very weird show. The Basham brothers competed and they got a win. On pay-per-view, John Cena battered Carlito's mate Jesus, aka the fella who stabbed him, and Kurt Angle beat the red and white arse off of Santa Claus. Yes, everyone's favourite Olympic gold medalist was on one and put his gold medal on the line in the Kurt Angle Invitational against Kris Kringle. Santa accepted the challenge, gave candy canes to the audience, and Kurt promised he'd make it so quick so Santa could go home to the North Pole with Taz and all of the other elves. You see, because Taz is so small, he's a very small man. Only a man as hard as Kurt Angle could get away with that kind of thing and live to tell the tale, calling Taz such a small man. I guess I'm dead then. Naturally, Angle destroyed Santa in about 20 seconds and later celebrated by teaming with Mark Jindrak and Luther Reigns to lose against The Big Show. What did this achieve? Who was this for? Why was this on pay-per-view? All questions without satisfactory answers. And as for who was under the red suit and beard, rumours are it was Cliff Compton, you know, Domino from Juice and Domino, or possibly it was William Regal. Or perhaps it was Santa himself, as we all know he was the North Pole Freestyle Wrestling Champion in 206 AD. Number 5, Austin vs Santa, Raw is War, December 1997. Bloody hell, Father Christmas gets about a bit, doesn't he? And for some reason, he always ends up in front of a WWE camera, despite the fact he always knows he's going to get his head knocked off. You'd think he'd learn by now, but of course he is a creature of habit after all. He stays in all year long and gets in his car to go for a drive around the world once a year. When you think about it, being Santa Claus must be really, really boring. In 1997, Santa turned up because he wanted to have a good old perv at Sable, but was miffed when there was no one to be found but a small child. It wasn't Taz this time, it was an actual small child. Desperate to canoodle with Sable, Saint Nick hoofed the kid out of the ring, parked his bum, and waited for the future Mrs. Brock Lesnar to appear. Stone Cold Steve Austin came out instead, however, and he didn't bring any milk or any cookies with him. Austin wanted to see if this was the real Santa Claus, so asked him what old Stone Cold wanted when he was 6 years old. Santa, being a bit of a glutton for punishment, replied with a Barbie doll or tiddlywinks, and to the surprise of absolutely nobody watching that episode of Raw is War, Austin stunned the festive cheer right out of his soul. This is when Austin was red hot, so if anyone was going to get away with assaulting Santa Claus, it was going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Oh, and the little kid who Santa Claus told to bugger off? Well, according to Bruce Pritchard on Something to Wrestle With, it was in fact one of the Usos. Down since day one-ish. Number 4, Hornswoggle can talk. The Vince McMahon guide to comedy is this. Farts are very funny. Willies are tremendously funny. Little people will always be funny. Sticking with Principle 3, one of the funniest people alive, according to Vinnie Mac of course, is Hornswoggle. Whether harassing Zelina Vega at the Royal Rumble or getting a bin yeeted at his head by JBL, Hornswoggle was always on hand for some mild comic relief. For 2011's SmackDown Christmas special, Santa turned up once more to visit the WWE Christmas party and granted the power of speech to Hornswoggle as Dusty Rhodes and Roddy Piper looked on approvingly. And considering that Horny can still talk, this means that Santa is actual canon in WWE. However, this was far from the first time that a little performer in WWE was part of a Christmas wish. Rewind back to 1993 and everyone's favourite wrestling clown Doink had ditched his cool cigar chomping and bad-tempered ways and was now a lame geek who loved to have fun. Leading up to Christmas, and you guessed it, Santa Claus was in town with his bulging sack. But what was in his sack? Yes, that's right, it was a mini doink, but crucially, that mini doink was not produced from Santa's sperm. WWF protocol didn't allow for there to be 2 Doinks on the roster, despite what happened at WrestleMania 9, so Doink OG named his new mini-me Dink. And if you can find it in your heart, dear Santa Claus, I'd like a mini version of myself this year, please. I will call him Toss. Number 3, Santa Claus. Why only promote Santa Claus around Christmas, eh? A character with that wealth of story and audience identity is wasted on just a few weeks of every single year. Why not make him a full-time attraction, but evil and played by Balls Mahoney? That was the thinking from Vince's McMahon and Russo leading up to In Your House 5, Seasons Beatings, which is an excellent name for an In Your House, by the way. At the show, Savio Vega brought, yes, him again, old Santa Claus himself, to the ring to give WWF merchandise to all the wee lads and lasses at ringside. Before a full-on Yuletide feel-good celebration could occur, Ted DiBiase arrived to ruin everything and proclaimed that everyone has a price. Even Santa. Father Christmas then beat the stuffing out of Savio Vega before being unveiled as Santa's evil brother from the South Pole, Xanta, with an X, because it was the 90s, and because Extreme, even toasters and vacuum cleaners had Extreme on them back then. Xanta then joined the $1 Million Corporation, but only lasted a few short weeks, because Vince McMahon came to his senses and realised that every Yuletime character has a limited shelf life. The man behind the beard and coat, Jonathan Reckner, was soon released and allegedly threatened McMahon over the phone, proving to ECW that he had a hefty set of balls on him. Number 2, the Shockmaster reads to kids. We all know the Shockmaster's debut, the helmet, the falling over, Davey Boy Smith commenting about his arse, Ole Anderson's crap might work, but what happened afterwards? Well, obviously, his run as a would-be main eventer was dead on arrival. But WCW had the name, they had Uncle Fred signed to a contract, and most importantly of all, the Shockmaster had clearly popped the boys. So they kept him around and turned him from a furry vest-wearing disco stormtrooper from the future to a klutzy construction worker from the Beano. Heading into Christmas 1993, and WCW had an episode of Saturday Night scheduled for broadcast on December the 25th, otherwise known as Christmas Day. There was no point in putting on a bunch of high-impact matches and dramatic storyline beats on a date like that, was there? So WCW realised they might as well just bung in some assorted Christmas filler. So Shockmaster was given the task of dressing up as Santa Claus and reading The Night Before Christmas to a group of enthralled kids. He managed to get through it without any major incidents, but his reading was hardly any good. Still, the kids enjoyed it, including a young Cody Rhodes. Several days later, Shockmaster would lose at Starrcade and would be gone from WCW in January 1994. Merry Christmas to all, and to all fall through the wall. And number 1, the Christmas Creature. 7 feet tall, furious for reasons that were never really explained, and dressed like an elf on a shelf after a cocaine binge through your grandma's Christmas decoration box. The USWA's Christmas Creature was odd, to say the very least. Now, we all know that wrestling comes with an inherent amount of silliness tied to it, but the silliness has to make sense on some level, and nothing about the Christmas Creature made sense. Was he one of Kris Kringle's elves after a growth spurt who had a fetish for violence? Was he an experiment in festive mirth gone wrong? An angry former employee looking for vengeance, a la Elliot Loudermilk in Scrooged? It was never clear why the creature was in USWA or what his motives were. All we knew is that he was massive, evil, wreaked havoc, and he finished opponents off with a chokeslam. Hang on, that sort of sounds familiar. Wait a minute, I recognize the Christmas Creature. That's gotta be Kane. And alas, it was. That's right, Big Glenn Jacobs was very early on in his career, saddled with the first of many awful gimmicks before he strike gold with the Big Red Machine. The Christmas Creature was a blink and you'll miss it affair, mainly due to the fact it was a seasonal gimmick that has a limited shelf life, and also down to the fact it was plain old hokey. And you have Jerry Lawler's son Kevin to thank for that. That's right, Lawler Jr. apparently came up with the concept for the costume, and allegedly, Jacobs took it to his own mother for her to make. Imagine that conversation. The creature debuted by attacking a drunk Santa Claus and then went on to face Trey Keller. Who the hell is Trey Keller? I have no idea either. But to be honest with you, once you've seen one Christmas Creature match, you've seen enough. While he didn't do much, the Christmas Creature did turn heads, and USWA's mates the WWF took notice of the massive green-red machine and allegedly originally earmarked Glenn Jacobs for a spot at the Survivor Series in 1993 as one of Shawn Michaels' hooded knights. But it wasn't meant to be, as Bruce Pritchard noted on Something to Wrestle With that Jacobs was as green as the Christmas creature's silky onesie. He got there eventually though.